Today we have somebody very, very special in the studio. Dr. GLEN REIN is sitting here with me today. First and foremost, before I introduce you, I want to say thank you very much for being here today.
My pleasure.
So for those of you who don't know who Dr. GLEN REIN is, also Professor REIN, as he likes to be called, he is a pioneering biochemist and founder of the Quantum Biology Research Lab. He has a doctorate from the University of London and research experience at Mount Sinai, Stanford University School of Medicine, Harvard University School of Medicine, and what I love is that his work bridges modern science and energy medicine. For nearly 5 decades, if I'm getting that right, nearly 5 decades, Dr. GLEN REIN has explored subtle electromagnetic and scalar fields and how they influence DNA, how they influence water, and how they influence the body's biofield. Today, he's here to share something that I would say him and myself are very excited about. As you can see right over here, the light system technology. This is the light system cube. He's recently studied this technology in depth, including a very fascinating comparative study between the light system and other technologies that he's analyzed over the years. Dr. GLEN REIN also gave me a very powerful letter that outlines this research and so much more, which we'll get into throughout this podcast. We're going to dive into some of this in the following podcast. Get ready. It's about to get a lot of fun, and it's about to get very, very interesting.
I've developed a method that involves a unique approach to measuring the electrical energy.
So when you measure the conductivity in living cells, what does it really tell us, like in terms of percentage increases and whatnot? What does that really tell us about vitality or wellness in the body? What are you looking for?
Most machines and even healers are around 50. Some are quite weak and hardly do anything. And it turns out that the TLS system, it was 80%, which is just about max. The weakest technology I ever saw actually was the EESystem, which took 36 hours.
You're saying that what took over 20, 25 hours, whatever it is,
Right.
On that other technology, light system did in 1 hour, it even surpassed the
It's a
results.
stronger effect. It is stronger acting and faster acting than most other technologies. Getting an 80% is very unusual and indicates a very powerful technology.
Why do you think the light system achieved such a high increase of nearly 80%? What do you make of it as the scientist, the doctor, the individual with experience here? To my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, when you did your study on the light system, you did it on 2 points opposing each other, correct?
Yeah, I was very surprised to see that it acted so quickly and with such a strong effect. Then I realized, as I said earlier, these guys are doing it right. The scientific concept here is that when you have beams of light that are opposing each other 180 degrees, when they hit each other, they annihilate each other, they cancel out.
You know, Glenn, you did these studies in the past when it came to EESystem. And now you did these studies on the light system. And I said, I think many people may ask, what was the change of heart, right? What happened? What caused you to say, well, I want to give this a shot, and now I see that this is doing a lot better work?
Although she claims her parents are scientists, and therefore she's a scientist, she's not a scientist. Some of the statements that she made are just inconsistent with science.
My question for you is, in terms of synchronizing movement on those screens, how important is that to you?
The more similar the two particles are to each other, the stronger the resonance. The stronger the resonance, the more likely the two will couple and cancel. This is a novel method of delivering the subtle energetic information associated with an affirmation.
So before we get started, first of all, can I call you Dr. GLEN? GLEN, what do you prefer?
Glenn, I'm an informal kind of guy, you know. I mean, the credentials and all that stuff are kind of irrelevant for me, but I just decided at one point in my career I needed to get a PhD so I could be understood and respected, because the kind of work I knew I was about to do fell so far from mainstream that if I had credentials like that, that would really help people understand that that I have a science background and this is real science, not imagination.
100%. I think it's very important to kind of ground things into reality, to be able to speak to people where they're at and have them understand. And I think those credentials are extremely important. I also love that you don't really care about them, because I'm calling you Glenn from now on, so it's awesome. Now, with that, there are a lot of people, some people that may not know who you are. I'm a big fan of your work. You work with a lot of friends of mine as well, and you do some incredible things. Can you sort of give us an idea of your background, why you got into this work in the first place? You've been doing this for nearly 50 years. Just for those who don't know you, why did you get into this work? How did you get into this work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started my career as a biochemist because I thought biochemistry was the fundamental core of all biomedical research and disease, that it was all happening at the biochemical level. And then I read an article by a PhD scientist who happened to be a nun, and she happened to be studying effects of healing energy on enzymes in a test tube. And she was showing that the energy could affect the biochemistry, and I'm going, holy cow, if that's, well, it's not exactly the word I use, but if that's the case, if energy can heal like that, then why am I wasting my time studying drugs and chemicals? They're just far more interesting and far more fundamental. So then I started to get involved with bioelectromagnetism.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Which is a discipline of science, a scientific discipline, which is composed of biologists and electrical engineers studying the effects of electromagnetic fields on the body. Now it's split between two, harmful effects and beneficial effects, but electromagnetic fields clearly do affect the body, and it can go in either direction. Cell phone radiation is a good example of harmful, and all these PEMF devices out there are a good example of beneficial.
I want to ask you on part of your methodology, some of the methods that you've sort of developed over the years. One of them I see is called, according to your letter here, electrochemical impedance spectroscopy. And I understand that you use that in one of your studies that you did recently with the light system.
Right.
Before we get into that and your findings and the results and so on and so forth, can you explain what EIS is for short, electrochemical impedance spectroscopy?
Yeah, it's a fancy name for but it's electrodiagnosis. It basically, it's measuring the electrical system in the body. So the body is composed of many different kind of energies. And I, being trained as a biochemist, I going like, well, I don't want to measure the biochemistry. Everybody's measuring the biochemistry. I want to measure the energy of the system. So in order to do that, the most logical kind of energy to measure is electrical energy, because the body is bioelectric. The nerves are electrical, the whole brain obviously is electrical. So an EEG measures the electricity in the brain. Mm-hmm. And GSR, galvanic skin response, measures the electricity in the whole body. But the way I do it is a special way. I use standard impedance spectroscopy, which basically just means you're measuring the electrical properties of the body, whether it's impedance, resistance, which they're related, or conductivity, which you've heard of before. Mm-hmm. They're all mathematically related. It's all electrical energy, which the body predominates. And it turns out electrical energy is very easy, not easy, to rephrase that, Western science is really good at measuring electrical energy because everything is electrical. Now, when it comes to the subtle energies of the body, that's where the science is a little behind.
Yes.
But, and there's really, no really good way to measure subtle energy. In my humble opinion. Nonetheless, I've developed a method that involves a unique approach to measuring the electrical energy. I measure the electrical energy at a specific frequency.
Are we speaking about like the voltage in cells?
Where we're talking about the resonance frequency of the target.
Okay.
Every cell or every molecule and humans have many frequencies, but actually so do molecules and cells. But everybody's got a frequency signature. And amongst those millions of frequencies, there are certain ones that are very strong. They're called resonance frequencies. So I measure the resonance frequencies of cells and molecules. I've done a lot of work with DNA, for example. So you have to take the measurement at one of those resonance frequencies of the target, in this case DNA.
So you would compare that like before and after and see the difference.
I would take right, but I'm talking about how you actually take the measurements. I have other modifications of the standard way of doing it. So I'm measuring, I believe, more than just the electromagnetic component, but I believe there's a strong, subtle, energetic, quantum component in the measurements that I take. So this method is what I use. It's very sensitive, and I can distinguish, and I've now applied it to measuring my own cells in my own body, living cells in my own body before and after being exposed to various external machines or energies or whatever.
So when you measure the conductivity in living cells, what does it really tell us, like in terms of percentage increases and whatnot? What does that really tell us about vitality or wellness in the body? What are you looking for?
Okay, well, the in theory, the stronger the electrical energy of the system, the healthier you are. Jerry Tennant wrote a whole book about that, Body Healing is Voltage.
Yes.
All about the millivolt membrane potential, the electrical energy across the cell membrane. So this is a slightly different way of measuring that, but it's the same concept. Jerry talks about the polarity, negative versus positive. In my case, I'm just interested in the magnitude of the change. Now, it's called impedance spectroscopy, so I do measure impedance, which is the opposite of conductivity. So in a way, we're just measuring the flow of energy through and around the cell. And that's basically what the biofield does. So in a way, it's measuring the biofield at the cellular level.
And more flow equates to obviously more health, you're saying.
Right, right. So in terms of magnitude of the effect, so I'm measuring, as you said, before, treat myself with a machine or a healer, and then measure the after. And if you do nothing and there's no intervention, the difference, the percent difference, is about 5%. They're pretty close. They're not being influenced. If you have a mild to moderate effect, you're talking about 20 to 30%. And if you have a really strong effect, we're talking about 70 or 80%. Now, most machines and even healers are around 50. Imagine that. You got a scale of 1 to 100, so everyone's halfway, right? But some are quite weak and hardly do anything, and it turns out that the TLS system, it was 80%, which is just about max from what I've observed from other machines.
So you're saying 80% increase
Change, yeah, right.
in cellular electrical conductivity.
The electrical energy associated with the cells, but I'm actually measuring the flow of electrical energy.
And I have your letter here, and I can quote it in a moment, but I want to ask you before we get to it, you mentioned a weak effect, a moderate effect,
Right.
and a strong effect.
Right.
Number one, when it comes to the light system with your studies or your research so far, what period of time did it take to get that 80% change?
So that's okay. So that's a great point. So the first question is how strong is the effect? And the next question along with that is how long does it take to get there? So most machines take a couple of hours.
When you say a couple, do you actually mean 2 hours?
1 to 2 hours is a pretty common thing. Some take as short as 5 minutes, but it's not the maximum effect. And then some take even longer, hours.
20 hours, 30
Yeah,
hours.
the weakest or strongest or most delayed technology I ever saw actually was the EESystem, which took 36 hours to see a reasonable effect. And the TLS is an even stronger effect at only 1 hour, so we got a big difference here.
So let's go to that for a second, because now we're talking about comparative studies, because you're an individual that studied...
Independent lab, a contract lab, so whoever comes to me says, yeah, I'll measure it if I have a way of measuring it, and I can compare it with other people.
So you're saying that EESystem came to you in the past, whatever it was. You did
Right.
studies on their technology. Right. I've seen some of those studies, by the way.
Yeah, they're out there. Right.
Got you. And recently you did a study for the light system, and your comparative results, from what you're saying, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that what took over 20, 25 hours, whatever it is,
right.
on that other technology, light system did in 1 hour and even surpassed the results.
Even stronger effect. Yeah, exactly. It is stronger acting and faster acting than most other technologies as I've tested. It turns out that other systems, PEMF devices, photo biomodulation, scalar, I mean, many different kinds of systems, treatment systems out there. And most of them have, like as I said, like 30, 40, 50%. Getting an 80% is very unusual and indicates a very powerful technology.
Interesting. So I want to read a part of this letter over here that you handed me. And it says, under methodology and results, just to get your words exact, it says the method has been used to evaluate several commercial wellness technologies, including the EESystem, as you say here, which I had studied in the past. Some technologies, including the light system, or TLS for short, require only an hour of treatment to produce significant effects on the electrical conductivity of living cells in the body. In the case of the light system, it produced an 80% increase in electrical conductivity. This is a strong effect, as many other systems tested produce a moderate 30 to 50% effect, and some systems produce only a weak 20 to 30% effect. According to my research, the EESystem, which is the other system, produced a moderate effect but required 25 hours of treatment, whereas the light system technology resulted in a stronger effect of 80% in less time of just 1 hour. So now, quoting that and having this conversation with you, my question is, why do you think the light system achieved such a high increase of nearly 80%? What do you make of it as the scientist, the doctor, the individual with experience here?
Well, that's a great question, and scientists don't really know the answer, but I can give you some clues from my experience. The frequencies of the energy that's radiating from the two devices. Now, the frequency will be very much determined by the words and the symbols that are scrolling. And it's not quite clear whether the two systems have the same. I mean, those symbols are actually were I think Robert calls them meta language.
He calls them the meta matrix.
Meta matrix.
The font is the same, to my knowledge. The linguistics behind the font, so what's actually being said and written, are different.
Right.
So in the light system, you're going to have linguistics that you don't have anywhere else.
Oh, okay. So then that would explain the difference, because the other technologies have different symbols and different order of symbols and different color of symbols. So all of that will change the frequencies that are being delivered into the body, and it is very novel, because these are not frequencies like Rife frequencies, which are very specific numbers. You know, these are frequencies associated with the symbols.
So I wanna go through some possible misconceptions from the past, what other individuals have been saying about the configuration aspect. So, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, when you did your study on the light system, you did it on 2 points opposing each other, correct?
Yeah. The scientific concept here is that when you have beams of light that are opposing each other 180 degrees, when they hit each other, they annihilate each other, they cancel out the gross form. Every electromagnetic field or light or technology has a gross and a subtle component. So when you force the two fields together like this, the gross component gets canceled out, and the subtle one that is underneath comes to the surface. So it really, now, so if you do it with two beams, you get a cancellation. So yes, I agree that two works because the basic principle that you're canceling the energy and allowing the subtle energy to come to the surface. So it doesn't really, it will happen whether there's two or four. And it's not clear at all whether four is better for the body than two. oftentimes subtle energy works better when it's subtle.
I just find it interesting because, you know, with so many things being said by so many people on the configuration specifically and differences, when I look at the study and the results, this is done on a 2-point system with multiple monitors, but a
Right.
2-point system, and you're seeing what you saw. So I want to ask you, when it comes to, beyond what we already spoke about, when it comes to other technologies in general that you've worked with, was there anything specific that stood out or that you didn't expect to see that you actually saw in the results with the light system?
Well, it was just, other than it was very strong. That's what distinguished it from all the others. As I explained, most systems are way less. There are a few that give 80%, and those are the ones that I go, okay, those are the ones that I want to endorse. Those are the people I want to work with. Those guys have it right. They figured out how to resonate with the body, so that's a technology I want to work with.
So I want to ask you from a research perspective. There's testimonials, people sharing how they feel. Then there's objective data, science. And by the way, I think both are super important. But where do you think, I mean, is there anything objective that you can share outside of testimonial data? Would you consider the cheek cell test that you did with the light system completely objective?
Oh.
Is there any placebo involved in that?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I followed the published procedure written up by scientists, published in a scientific journal. The whole basis of science is under the assumption that anybody can set up that essay and use it, and that it is objective. The idea that my consciousness can affect the results is kind of a rather new concept, not accepted by mainstream. And actually, I do believe that that's possible. I do believe that all measurements are subjective, and that the scientist can influence the results. I happen to be doing this for like 40 years or 50 years, and I have learned to isolate my consciousness so that it doesn't affect the results. It doesn't happen that often, but every so often I get an effect of the exact opposite, where I'm thinking, oh, I bet that'll blah, 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 and then, you know, the exact opposite happens. So I've seen that before, so that tells me that I'm at least able to minimize my conscious effect on the system.
Can we clarify a buzzword that a lot of people talk about when it comes to scalar energy? It's something that you're obviously an expert in. The reason why I ask for clarification is because individuals who you also spoke about in your letter, like Sandra, for example, always represented, and I've seen this myself, it was always public statements of the system being able to propagate in every direction about 2.2 or 2.3 miles or whatever it is.
Right.
To your knowledge, with your experience, is that true? Is it not true? What makes sense to me here is it may fill a room, it may fill a home, but can it really go that far?
I'm going to answer that question based on a scientific study that was published in a physics journal that looked at the nature of the energy coming off of a scalar field, a toroid. And they did acknowledge that the shape was different than an ordinary electromagnetic field, and they actually measured how far it propagated from the source coil. And the answer was on the order of a couple of 100 feet. So I don't know where the people get the idea that a scalar field propagates infinitely. Now, a quantum field might do that, but a scalar field is not quite a quantum field, and it is basically electromagnetic in nature. It doesn't obey the classic laws, but it obeys modified laws. That means it propagates at a certain distance, at a certain speed, with certain properties. So based on the scientific study I just quoted, the answer would be no, it doesn't go out for 2 miles.
So I want to ask you on not an unrelated topic whatsoever, but I think it's important because one of the questions that I asked you also, just the other day we were talking, and I said, Glenn, you did these studies in the past when it came to EESystem. And now you did these studies on the light system. And I said, I think many people may ask, what was the change of heart, right? What happened? What caused you to say, well, I want to give this a shot, and now I see that this is doing a lot better work. And I want to quote a piece from this because it brings it back to certain things that you wrote in this letter may cause people to ask, well, if this is the case, then why did Glenn do this work in the first place a few years ago when he did it? So I'm just going to quote right here from the letter. It says, to my knowledge, Sandra is not a licensed medical doctor or chiropractor. She states her parents were scientists and has publicly presented herself as a scientist. In my professional opinion, many of her statements are scientifically questionable or inconsistent with established principles of physics and biology. So what was the change of heart, and when did you understand that to be true that caused you to have that change of heart?
Well, I felt that right from the beginning when I would ask Sandra very specific questions about her technology, and she explained them in a very elegant way that was sometimes scientifically accurate and sometimes not. Although she claims her parents are scientists and therefore she's a scientist, she's not a scientist. Some of the statements that she made are just inconsistent with science. Like the example we just gave is the 2-mile radius of a scalar field, when the scientific public literature indicates that's not the case.
Back to the technology that we're here to speak about for a moment. I want to ask you your honest opinion on something, or your honest experience firsthand. Number one, when you first saw it, this specifically, what were your thoughts? Did you have skepticism? And on the same token of that question, when did you realize that you were dealing with something that was unique or out of the ordinary? Because as you said, it reached, the 80% on that spectrum, something you don't see often.
Yeah, well, that's when I realized that this is special technology. After I got the results, it was when I saw the magnitude of the effect. And because, the initial experiment I did was like for hours, I think, because it's like, well, this is supposed to take a long time, so I better, make sure I see an effect. So I'm going to do for hours and hours, and then I can cut back and say, well, it didn't take that long. It actually only took X number of hours or minutes even. So it's an unknown variable when you're studying a new technology. So I was very surprised to see that it acted so quickly and with such a strong effect. Then I realized, as I said earlier, these guys are doing it right.
Is there any room, have you ever thought, I don't know where you're at with this, but you're obviously a very experienced and knowledgeable individual, a lot of experience under your belt. Is this something that when it comes to the light system, you would be interested in helping find ways to bring it from that 80% to 90%, maybe even 95%?
Yeah, well, my quantum biology research lab is an independent research lab, and as I said earlier, I think you guys are onto something, so I'd be happy to do additional testing. What I would like to do in terms of future research is to understand and determine the optimal treatment protocol. Because of the more I study these different kinds of energies, it turns out that some technologies work very fast and very strong, and some work very fast, very slow, and then build up. And you don't know whether you should have an on-off cycle, how long the on cycle should be, how long the off cycle should be, whether it's better to be continuous. Well, we know the body's going to adapt, so that you can't do it for too many hours. And that kind of thing, this technology clearly works. Optimizing it is not so necessarily making a difference between 70 and 80%, but it's between optimizing it's the same thing. However we do that, we can certainly optimize the frequency signatures are kind of given, I guess, but yeah, there's a million ways to change the geometry we talked about, change the words, and change the geometry of the field, so and change the timing.
Do you believe you can optimize it to make it work even faster?
Yeah, faster. Well, faster, faster and stronger.
An hour is fast, 25 minutes is fast. I'm saying, do you see a world, a reality, where you can do this in 10 minutes with your knowledge and reach 80, 85%?
Right. Yeah, the answer to that is yes, because the more we enhance the quantum properties of the energy emitted by the screens, the more instantaneous will the biological effects be.
How long do you think it would take to create the protocol that you're speaking about, to understand? Because on one hand, you have so many dynamics when it comes to so many different types of individuals.
Right.
And at the same time, there needs to be, in my opinion, some sort of protocol, like you said, of this is what is recommended. It's not one size fits all, but this is how we can do our best at one size fits all.
Well, the ultimate thing would be to figure out exactly why some people respond the way they do and others don't. So have some kind of a preliminary measurement thing and say, oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're down here at 2 and 3, you need these set of parameters. And oh, you're up here at an 8 and a 9, you need a different set of patterns, a different delivery system, different intensity. That will be the ultimate solution. To automate that and characterize that from a scientific point of view will take a lot of work. How much time? It depends. We could get the optimal conditions on the first experiment. We could just intuit and say, oh, it's got to be 30 minutes on and 72 minutes off. And then we'll luck out. So it'll only take 1 day. But so you can't predict how long it's going to take because there's almost an infinite number of variables.
We've established that 2 screens, or not so much 2 screens, but 2 points, have an incredible effect as well, which is what the light system uses. They give options for more than that. My question for you is, in terms of synchronizing movement on those screens, how important is that to you?
I believe that when the 2 panels are exactly in sync, then the degree of cancellation will be more. So the strength of the scalar, or the what I call non-classical electromagnetic energy, or in this case light energy, the more similar the 2 particles are to each other, the stronger the resonance. The stronger the resonance, the more likely the 2 will couple and cancel and create that scalar field.
Intuitively, I'm going to shoot you a quick question. Which do you think intuitively you were more attracted to out of the sphere, the cube, and the pyramid?
My first gut reaction when I saw the sphere was I felt the bending energy, and it felt different to me. It was like, and it could have like, almost like a magnetic attraction. It's like, ooh, that's interesting. The energy, it's spherical, and there was just something very magical about the sphere.
If you could summarize this technology with your experience in 1 sentence, or even a few words, what would you say?
This is a novel method of delivering the subtle energetic information associated with an affirmation. The idea of using unconventional energy waves to carry that information into the body, through the eyes and even through the skull. Light goes through the skull, is very novel, and I think it needs to be explored more and has a broader application, using different kinds of words and different kinds of delivery systems, as we talked about.
Number one, it's been an honor meeting you for the first time in person here today.
My pleasure.
And I look forward to seeing more of your research that you're going to conduct with this technology to not only understand better in terms of what it's doing, how it's doing, and how to best use it and optimize it, but where this can actually go over the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and beyond our lifetimes as well. So first of all, I want to say thank you very much for your time. But before we close up, do you have any closing messages, last words that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I guess my closing statement for any interview that has to do with the use of external energy fields to influence our own internal fields and thereby producing a healing effect is that we as human beings have to understand that this kind of energy is only activating our own internal healing energy. And some people can do that without an external machine. Most people cannot. But this, to me, is a learning wheel, like when you're riding a bicycle. It's learning how to utilize our own mind to promote the healing process. And at this stage, most of us have learning wheels, and we need a little help from an external energy source, but ultimately we should and will, as a species, learn how to do it ourselves by generating our own internal energies with our intention and our will.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for today. We got Dr. Glen REIN. His time and energy is precious. We got some awesome things from him today. So I look forward to seeing where this is going to go. If you want to learn more about this technology, if you want to see what it can do for you, make sure to go to thelightsystems.com to learn more about it. There's a link in the description below. Until next time, thank you all very much. Share this video far and wide.